large hill that was surrounded by a dense forest. I had barely started the movie when I heard what sounded like a kitten meowing outside. I got up and decided to investigate. I went outside and immediately noticed something wasn't right because the meowing sounded like it was coming from about 20 feet up in a large oak tree. When I walked over and stood directly underneath the branches, the meowing turned into a deep growling, almost like a lion or some other big cat. It was too dark out to see anything clearly. Deeply unsettled by this, I went back inside and locked the door while I contemplated whether or not I would be overreacting by calling the cops. I then heard a loud boom on my roof, followed by the most insane high-pitched scream I had ever heard. I covered my ears, ran to the bedroom, and grabbed the shotgun from the closet. I was shaking with fear. I felt in the air that something was different, something was not normal. I called my husband at work, and just as he answered, the screeching sound started up again, only this time it was deeper and longer. My husband told me to hang up and call the police, but I knew they wouldn't arrive for at least an hour, so instead I decided to stand facing the bay window with my shotgun up and ready. After a few moments, I saw what looked like an emaciated teenager jump down in front of the window and face my direction. He had completely white, glowing eyes, as well as white hair and extremely pale skin. He looked up as if he was sniffing the air, then he growled while glaring at me. His eyes seemed to get brighter as he did so. After another moment, he opened his mouth and revealed what appeared to be a forked tongue. Before I could even process what I was looking at, I heard more footsteps on the roof. Suddenly, a small girl that looked just like him jumped down from above, also looking directly at me with glowing white eyes. I instinctively cocked back the hammer on the shotgun and pointed it at them both. I didn't want to shoot through the window if I could help it, but I wasn't going to let them get in. They pressed their faces to the window, and all I could think about was how silent it was, all of a sudden, and how pulling the trigger would break the silence. I'm not sure how long we locked eyes, but I suddenly noticed a pair of headlights coming up the driveway, and I recognized a police car. I wanted to scream out to him not to get out of the car, but before I could even open my mouth, both white-eyed creatures leapt into the darkness of my garden. The policeman never caught a glimpse of them and ultimately didn't believe me. My husband's mother did and confided in me that she had seen them before. She believed that they were some kind of demon. Over the next few years before we moved away, I would froze in my tracks, trying not to make a sound. I would have asked him if he needed help, but there was something about the way he just stood there that gave me the creeps. He stood there, not doing anything. I then heard him giggling. It was no ordinary giggle. It sounded evil. The giggling got louder, and he began to sound like some kind of deranged freak. I started to gradually move backwards without even turning around, making sure this man didn't turn around or notice me. When I got at a visual distance, I turned around and stomped through the snow back to the cabin. I slammed the door shut and my wife came over to see what was wrong. I saw worry in her eyes. I guess she saw the worry on my face and knew I had seen something. I told her what I saw and she immediately started packing her things, telling me we're leaving right away. I told her, no, we're not going anywhere, because I would not get a refund for leaving the cabin early. I wasn't about to up and leave just because some weird guy was walking around outside. She made a point of locking both bolts on the door and making sure all the windows were sealed shut. For the rest of the night we stayed close together until it was time for bed. What if he's still out there? I remember my wife asking me. There's no way he's still out there. It's minus 10 degrees, I assured her, listening to the wind blowing outside along with the small flakes of snow hitting the window was strangely relaxing, and I knew we would be able to fall asleep quickly. Before we could, there was a knock at the bedroom window. We were both still awake and we both knew it was a knock from a person. I ushered my wife out sat up and my heart sank when I realised it was the sound of the crank to my flashlight. I stood up and looked out the window, and that's when the sound stopped. There was nothing but complete blackness out there. After that experience, I woke the next day feeling very weak and in a low mood. My brother felt the same. Whatever happened that night has stayed with my brother and I. The playground. I'm a single father currently living with my 5-year-old son. I have an old wooden playground in my backyard. It has a tire swing, monkey bars and big slide. A couple of times recently I've heard noises coming from the playground at night. I'll start from the first night. I woke up one night last week to the sound of something squeaking from outside. I recognised it to be the sound of the rusty chain on the tire swing spinning around. I also heard a young child's laughter out there. I thought it was my son, so I went to his room to find him in his bed fast asleep. Seeing him in his bed meant that some stranger was in my yard, but when I opened the back door to the backyard, there was no one back there. However, the tire swing was spinning slowly, as if somebody had just gotten off it. I wasn't too panicked about it, and figured it was probably some kid just sneaking into my yard. I decided to get back to sleep. The next night, I woke up again to the sound of someone stomping up and down the slide, once again accompanied by the sound of a child's laughter. I checked my son's room to find him in bed. This was getting weird. This time I thought I'd be a little smarter about it and check the window first before going outside. Nothing was out there though, not on the playground at least. I still went outside anyway, just to make sure. For a couple nights after that, nothing happened and I completely forgot about it, but on the third night, while in bed, a knock at my window startled me. I sat up in shock for a good minute, afraid to look outside, but eventually I was brave enough to do so. I looked out the foggy window, and through the smudge, I could see both the swings on the swing set swinging lightly, accompanied with the laughter of a child again. I ran as fast as I could down those stairs and out the back door, but instead of finding a couple of deviant little kids back there, instead I saw a towering figure standing by the slide. It was too dark outside to see any features, but his form was almost inhuman. It was black, almost in shadow, and it was at least 7 foot tall. It was also very thin and lanky. Whatever it was, I could feel it staring at me. Fear took over me. I turned to run back inside, making sure to lock the door behind me. I called the police. The wait for an officer to arrive was the longest 20 minutes I'd ever experienced. By the time they got there though, the figure on the playground was gone. They took down what little information I could give them and left. I wish I could say that was the last occurrence, but just last night there was another knock in my window. I simply ignored it this time though. I'm dreading going to sleep tonight. The Hitcher. I've learned one thing from my one and only experience picking up a hitchhiker. Don't pick up a hitchhiker. It was a Saturday night, probably around 1 in the morning, and I had just finished my late shift job at a pizza place. I was driving down a road that I usually took to get into my town. It was a long stretch of nothing but woods on either side with the occasional residence. As usual at this time of night, around our quiet old town, there was not a single other car on the road. I turned on the off-road lights on my Jeep to have optimal vision on the unlit highway. Suddenly I spotted somebody far down the road, just standing at the side. As I got closer, I saw him raise his arm up and stick up his thumb. He was trying to hitch a ride. My heart started racing because I had no idea if I should stop or not. I slowed down just to get a